For a safe and savvy solution to liquidate your designer garments, you don't want to miss today's Carolina People. We'll show you the money coming up next. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on ConsignOnlineDesigns.com and its founder, Eveleigh Hudson. Good morning, Eveleigh.
How are you this
Thanks so
morning?
much for being with us this morning.
Well, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Incredible opportunity to highlight this new startup business and to highlight your life. So many amazing facets. Obviously, it was a thrill yesterday to have your husband in. Truly a treat to see so many things going on in the Strand and with his life and the two of you all teaming up to really make the community so much stronger. Thank you again. Eveleigh, real quick about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
Well, I grew up close by in Marlboro County. I'm from a small town named Clio. A lot of people say it's CL10. It's 847 people and one stoplight, so I'm a small town girl.
Is that right?
That's
Clio.
true. First bicycle was built in Clio in South Carolina.
Come on, is that right?
Yes.
When was that? You remember?
Way back.
Yeah, a little ways
Before
back.
my time.
That's right. Well, Clio and Marlboro County are definitely in our viewing area. We've got a fascinating array. Bennettsville, of course, is a central area. And we had a Director of Economic Development for the county in when we did a week focus on the Eastern South Carolina Alliance, just only a few months back over the Bell South building. It's fascinating learning more about Marlboro County. A lot going on up there. A lot going on. Where did you attend school, Eveleigh?
Well, I started out of college at Wentworth College and ended up over at Francis Marion. So I stayed pretty close to home. Wentworth was a little bit too far away from me at the time, so I went to Florence and went to Francis
majored
Marion. In interior design.
Okay, great. What did you do immediately after college?
Well, I was very fortunate after college, and I ended up in Myrtle Beach, and I got a job with Waccamaw Linen as a buyer. They're craft buyers then. And I started there, and I believe it was 1981, right when crafts were really coming on the horizon, were, you know, a great market to be in.
And how long were you there, Eveleigh?
I was there from 1981 to 1989, and through that period, Waccamaw grew into an enormous operation. And I ended up buying for the craft department, and by the time I left in 1989, I had purchased for every department they had at some point in time. There were 2 buyouts during that time, and of course I made it through both of them, which was very fortunate. And it was a good group of people. It was a good time to be in retail, and we were a good family organization. So I had a good time there. It was a lot of good memories.
And how did you get interested in merchandising in the first place?
Well, my family had been in that. My daddy and my mother had a frame shop, craft shop, so that's how the craft link came in and all that. So even as a child, you know, I was cutting mats or cutting glass or doing some kind of work to help at the frame shop or the craft shop.
So you were active in the family business growing up.
Yeah, very active. I used to always tell my daddy that if back in the 70s, if they had enforced child labor laws like they do now, he'd be in jail. But that builds character, he says.
Oh, yes, very definitely. Where's your family now, Eveleigh?
Well, we're scattered out. There's some in Atlanta and then Columbia, and have a brother out in Denver. That's the furthest point. But we stay pretty close to home.
At the end of '89, working with Waccamaw, did you leave Myrtle Beach?
Yes, I did. At that point, I was given the opportunity to work for a company in Florida, a silk greenhouse, and that was a very short stint for me because, unfortunately, they were having some problems in their company and realized that I had not made a good decision. You know, the grass is always greener. And in the meantime, one of my former bosses at Waccamaw got an investor, and he called me in Florida. He said, let's do it all over again. Let's build it like we built Waccamaw. I said, what are you talking about? He said, have an investor. Let's go to Columbia. Let's do it. So we opened up 2 retail stores in Columbia in breakneck speed time. We basically took a building that was about 60,000 square feet and opened it up in about 60 days. I lost 25 pounds in 60 days and ate a huge bag of peanut M&Ms every day just to keep me charged. We unloaded trucks, and of course in Columbia, that's a hot place, so we worked very hard. but we enjoyed, what we did. We
So
both
this
loved
previous
retail.
boss and that opportunity is what brought you back to South Carolina?
Got me back in
Right.
South Carolina.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Golly. When you think about that, how was the success? I mean, 60 days to fill up a 60,000 square foot building. Now, obviously, you didn't fill up the whole place, or did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, part of it was warehouse space,
Right,
of course, but,
right.
That was getting the building together, that was getting merchandise purchased, getting people hired, getting equipment in there, registers, and, all that's involved in putting a retail store together. Basically, I did the back part in operations, and I had the boys. I worked with the boys in the back, and he worked with girls up front with the cash registers and cashiers and that type of thing. So it was a good match for both of us, and we enjoyed what we did. We worked ourselves to death, but we loved what we did.
Oh, exciting, Mary Lee. That's been amazing. How successful was this venture?
It was very successful. He stayed with the company. I left after about a year and a half, 2 years, and he was there, I believe, about 3 or 4 years. And once you do something like that, then other bigger opportunities come along, So I was given the opportunity to move up north to New Jersey.
New Jersey?
New Jersey. Scarlett went north. And I worked for a gentleman that I had known previously through my Waccamaw days. It was one of my vendors that I had purchased a great deal of merchandise from. And he wanted me to come to New Jersey and help them in their product development. So I moved up there and stayed up there about 2 years and worked with product development. There were 7 languages that were spoken in our warehouse, plus the 8th one was Southernese, which was me.
Yes.
And the little lady that was over the warehouse was from Columbia, South America, not Columbia, South Carolina. And her name was Miss Fanning. And Miss Fanning and I somehow were able to communicate, and we made sure shipments came in and out from Korea and all, from all points in the world that I did business in. And I also had to work and get the trade booths together and make sure that all the presentation materials, all the marketing materials, and would travel to the trade shows and work with big buyers from Walmarts and Michael's chains and that type of thing. So then I was on the other side of the fence. I was selling to the buyers instead of being a buyer, as I was going before, so I crossed the line.
That is fascinating. When you think about that transition from, golly, growing up in Clio, attending school in the Carolinas, being in Myrtle Beach, and being in Florida, then in Columbia, to think you really hit the Southeast pretty dang well. But the transition to New Jersey, that must have been a big deal, Mary Lee. Obviously, you were working all the time.
Oh yeah, I was working, but it was a big change. That's where I learned to drive. I actually drove through New York City myself, and things like that, and made friends and had friends in Queens and all different parts of the area there, and it was a big adjustment. I think the hardest thing for me to get accustomed to was the housing issue. You come from Myrtle Beach and you used to your basic 2-bedroom apartment. Back then was $400 a month.
Right.
You wouldn't find a doghouse for $400 a month there. I remember when I went up there, my boss took me around to help me find a place to live, and I said, my daddy wouldn't let me live in something like this. So that was a hurdle, getting, finding good housing. And I ended up in a wonderful neighborhood and a beautiful place, thanks to some of the folks that he knew that owned real estate. But that was probably the hardest thing. Now I understand why folks from the north, why they love it down here so much.
Did you get your family to come visit you much while you were there?
No, they weren't interested in that. They were just glad to see me come home.
Yeah, I'm sure. And then when you think about all those aspects, were there any of those positions that required you to travel a lot, Mary Lee?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them. From the Waccamaw, when I was at Waccamaw, I traveled to Taiwan and to Hong Kong. We worked on product development there. We did different products, and put them under private label for us, for Waccamaw Corp. Hong Kong was a fabulous experience, being in downtown Hong Kong and the shopping and all that. And then we went out in the countryside and we'd go to the factories and you'd see the folks that worked there, the hard-working, people and the children. And, and the amazing thing is when you go into these factories, you realize that a lot of these products all come out of the same place. I remember going into a factory, and there were, remember the golf shirts, the Lacoste, the alligator?
Sure.
To be preppy, you had to have a alligator.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then someone came up with the fox, kind of a knockoff type look.
Like
well, I remember seeing alligator stacked up on one side and embroidered foxes on the other. That shirt was coming out of the same factory. It was just who was sewing on alligators and who was sewing on foxes. And so that shows you the power of advertising and marketing products.
Yeah, very definitely. Well, you know, it's so interesting talking to Gene yesterday. We didn't talk much about Hong Kong. Have you encouraged him to try to expand and maybe head out to Hong Kong sometime to see what it's like being in Asia?
No, I really haven't. I think I really traveled so much then. I don't really care about, you know, going back myself.
Heading
Been
back.
there, done that, and, you know, want to move on to something else. And I think I'm happy, you know, being right here in Myrtle Beach because it's just such a beautiful place.
Oh, it is, Mary Lee. And of course, you mentioned a minute or two ago that your family was so excited to get you back to Myrtle Beach. What prompted that move to leave New Jersey and head back? And did you come straight to Myrtle or some other part of South Carolina?
I came right back to Myrtle Beach. At the time, my stepmother was suffering from cancer, and I got the call. So I headed back home, and that's, you know, took care of, came back to Tara and took care of things here and rekindled some old relationships that I had and had a job, got a job here in Myrtle Beach, traveling out of Myrtle Beach. I started working for a company as a sales rep. I was on the other side of the fence again. And I traveled from the Virginia line all the way to Myrtle Beach. It was a long, narrow territory, but it was a good territory that I traveled. So I was able to get employment back here and kind of get close to my family again.
Definitely. And how long were you in this position before the opportunity to work with partners presented itself?
I was on the road, I guess, about 2.5 years, and a friend of mine mentioned to me that partners, and of course I didn't know what partners was, and she explained to me, you know, what they were very, basically she said they're kind of like an industrial chamber of commerce, and they are looking for, you know, someone to help market the organization. Why don't you go talk to them? I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did, and that's when I met Jack Hutchison, who became my boss. He hired me for the position, and so I was the head of the membership division. It entailed, you know, the marketing and the advertising and special events, and it was one of those positions that was created, and over the 6 years I was there, it was molded around me and what I felt like needed to be done and what the board directed us to do. So it was a great opportunity for me. I met a lot of wonderful local people because I'd been on the road so much. I, you know, didn't have that base, and this way it expanded my base.
When had Partners for Economic Development been formed? Had it been formed a good while back? Or?
They were, and it was under the county at the time, and then it was changed in 1994, I believe it was, and it became a public-private, non-profit organization. That's when they brought the private sector in to help fund the organization and to be more aggressive in recruiting new industry into the area. The private portion of it helped accelerate some of the processes that happened, things that were going on for growth, which is good that they did that.
And Jack had been their first executive director, or one of the early ones?
He was there when it was under the county also, and there through the change process too.
Instrumental in pulling it all together. Who were some of the other folks active in Partners early on? Obviously, you were brought in, Mary Lee, an exciting time to be involved and surely to recreate all your activities in Myrtle Beach, having been here before and then coming back. But as you said, now being in a permanent position, you really get out and grow Partners. And you said it was kind of an industrial chamber of commerce, and that's exactly how we think of it even now.
Well, Joe Woodle was there at the time. Joe was vice president, so I worked under Joe, which he's a charm to work with. And he's the president there now. Jack is retired, and then Joe's taken over as president. So he was also one of the ones that I worked with, too. So we were very close, you know, all of us. We worked well together. We were a little small family in that group.
What prompted you to leave Partners, Mary Lee, and where did you go from there?
Well, the guest you had yesterday, my darling husband, decided he would run for Congress. So therefore, by him running for Congress, to be politically correct, I needed to resign my position and help him in his campaign and his, desire to go to Washington.
How exciting, yeah.
Yeah. So we were married and at the time, and I resigned from Partners and helped him. We did later on, a few months later, decided that we would not be a part of that desire for Washington anymore. Right. But it was a good learning process, I think, for both of us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because we both love, politics. And we met a lot of nice people along the way.
I know. There's a whole lot of folks who came out of the woodwork to support your husband for that position. I know that was a big deal for him to see that effort. We didn't get much into that yesterday, as you know, but it was exciting to know that was really serving the community, something he's been doing for a long, long time.
Yes, he has. He certainly has.
You went at one point, I guess after Gene, after the pursuit for Congress had ended, there was a desire to get back into the workforce, and you went where, Mary Lee?
Well, and I keep referring to Scarlett because she's my hero. After about 4 months, I was at home as the new housewife, the new bride, and I was planting geraniums, and I said, I've planted my last one. I'm used to being in the loop and out. I need to go out and get a job. I need to get out. So I contacted a few of my previous contacts and partners and people that I knew, and I said, I need to get out of the house. So I went to see one of our former board members of Partners, Tom Woods, and sat down and talked to him. He had called me back and said, come see me. So on the way back home from the grocery store, I swung into Wellbro to go see Tom Woods, who was also a good friend of mine, too. Tom and I had become real good friends through Partners, and I always knew I could depend on him as a member of Partners. Anyway, it turns out he wanted me to come to work for him. He put together what my job description would entail, asked me if I would fly down to Florida to the corporate office and talk to them there. And I said, now, Tom, this sounds wonderful and great and everything, but I don't know a thing about building a building.
Yeah.
He says, I know that. He said, but you can help market our company to get us in front of the people that want to build those buildings. I said, I can do that for you. So I flew down and had a meeting with the president and vice presidents and et cetera. And very good meetings. As I was walking into the building for the meetings, this tall gentleman had his back to me, was holding the door open and was talking to Tom in the doorway. And I finally walked up beside him, and Tom says, Mary, come here, I want you to meet somebody. He's been here at Wellbro for 21 years. Good friend of mine, Jim Covington, Eveleigh Hudson. Well, this gentleman's tall like you are, 6'3", whatever, and I looked up at him, I stuck my hand out. I said, how you doing, cuz? He looked at me, thinking, who is this blonde-headed woman calling me cuz? Well, Tom thought I was just doing a little southern, being funny introduction. And he looked at me, and I said, I'm Rachel's daughter. He said, oh, my God, you look just like your mother.
Wow.
Well, he was my mother's second cousin from Clio.
Right. Is that right?
And he was the number 3 person there at the company. He was the 3rd employee when that company was formed 21 years ago. Amazing. And I had not seen he or his children, who were our ages, my brothers and sisters, for 20 years. So we had dinner together that night, and I got to see his children and his wife, and, it was like a good old home week. It was wonderful. So I knew that I had family when I would go down there. So I knew at that time that I was at the right place with the right company and that it was the right thing.
Well, a really exciting thing obviously happened when you decided to go ahead and start a whole new chapter in your career, Mary Lee. It's so exciting to think now about ConsignOnlineDesigns.com. Just a big, big deal. What inspired you to begin an online business and to leave Wellbro? That's a big deal.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I started doing eBay probably in the fall of last year just for things of my own. I'm a clothes horse. And when it got to the point it was, 2 rooms full, I knew I needed to do something. So I was very successful with that. And I would get up early in the mornings and check my emails and do my shipments during the day, during lunch and things like that. and it was working. And I thought, well, if there are women that have beautiful clothes like I do and have too much inventory, then this could work for them too. So it turns out, after I left Wellbro, I decided that I would do this full time. So I have my own website designed. I have auction sites and a storefront in eBay. I have excellent feedback, which is a very important part of eBay, where people that have bought from you comment on either good service, bad service, or whatever they want to say about you in about 45 characters. And that's like your credit rating on eBay, what people say about you. So it's real important that you keep all positive. So I have put together consignment merchandise. I do bridal and formal wear, those special dresses you've worn one time that you'll never ever wear again. And I also sell new merchandise on my website. Purses, fashionable feather purses, and all the little prissy little bags that, the ladies like.
It's so fascinating when we think about this, Mary Lee. The big question is, for a viewer who's never been to eBay, doesn't know what that means, how do you spell that first, and then what does it mean exactly? What is eBay?
Well, it's EBAY,
right,
all in primary colors.
.com.
Right, and they are in San Francisco. And Pierre tells a story. He went to register the company, and he had it as, he asked for one name, I guess with the Secretary of State or whatever it was, and it ended up, he just abbreviated it and called it eBay. His initial request was he couldn't have it. And he started it in 1995 over Labor Day weekend. He wrote the program for it and started it. And from there, if you go to the website, it's quite overwhelming. You really have to study it to understand it. That's what I've had, to do with it. Their website, there's several different facets of it. When you go on the home page, you have the auction side of it, and then you also have the eBay store side, and then you have eBay Motors. So it's really 3 different entities. There's over 29,000 categories that are listed on eBay.
Categories alone?
Categories, yeah. There's $684 a second that's done in gross sales. They did $1.2 billion last year in sales.
That is incredible. Well, that would be exciting and very magnetic about wanting to be involved with something like that.
It is.
Had you thought about launching consignonlinedesigns.com separately from eBay, or had you always knew it needed to be wrapped in?
You start with eBay is what you do.
Right.
Before you go out and do your own website, you start with eBay, and even before you start selling on eBay, I would strongly suggest you start buying on eBay to see how it works and to see which people are doing it right and doing it wrong. There's all different types of people out there that are doing business on there, but one of the main things that you do is you watch that feedback rating. If they've got negative feedback, then don't deal with them, then you won't, get burned. But there's a lot of people that have started businesses that started with little or nothing. Some of them just do yard sales and sell merchandise, that way, or sell extra things that are in their home, and it's a great way, to turn some of that, as I call dead inventory, into, money for you. But if you're going to go into it as a business, you need to really study it a little bit before you jump into it.
I'm sure. It's so fascinating. Mary Lee, you're not going to believe about 25 minutes have passed. We've only got a few minutes, and I'm just trying to think of some of the real critical aspects. Obviously, operating an Internet business, this is a 24/7. I mean, this is a big deal. How do you control your work day?
Very careful. Get up very early in the morning, and sometimes you go to sleep late at night. And you learn multitasking very well. And I keep to-do lists going all the time. Of course, I've always done that. But I always prioritize, the 4 quadrants, the Stephen Covey. I still do that in order to get some of the things done.
And in owning an Internet business or an online business, do you ever think about having a storefront, having a physical storefront, or is it so exciting just being able to really do much of this online?
I really prefer to stay online because I really feel like that's, the wave of the future. And that's been proven over and over, of course, with just the, the few figures that I've, given you on that. And the Internet's, the way to go. But the main thing is when you have your website, you have to invest your time and your money in your optimization and making sure you're in with the right search engines and your placement is right. And, of course, the same thing, with eBay. There's things you can do to get your placement better in your different categories of the merchandise you're trying to sell there. It's almost like a science, and you have to keep studying it, stay up to date with it.
And some of this language sounds like a science, Mary Lee. I mean, for a lot of viewers, for many of our folks who tune in, a little bit before Martha Stewart Living, for instance, a lot of folks who may not tune into Carolina People on a regular basis, it's fascinating for them just to hear a woman talking about eBay.com, but about consignonlinedesigns.com. It's so exciting to think about actually going online and stretching out and being able to communicate with people all over the world.
Yeah, it is. And I sell internationally. I ship things all over the world. And one of the things locally is for them to be able to consign the things on like that they want to, the gowns or whatever, and that puts them in front of a worldwide market. Just not a small market like Myrtle Beach trying to resell your things. You're selling to the entire world. So your possibilities are much better.
Amazing.
Yeah, your return on your investment's better.
Mary Lee, lastly, if a friend of yours wanted to begin an internet business, what would you advise them to do?
I'd study, I'd read, I'd buy on eBay first before I started selling. That's what I would do.
And how do you hope to expand at consignonlinedesigns.com?
Oh, my brain is just churning with all kinds of ideas. It's the retailer in me. But expand my product line on my website, and also it's on eBay and the eBay store, so I have, those different entities. I also do locally. I build my local base. I do seasonal purse parties, which is a good opportunity for me to, get to see, a lot of my friends and do business, locally.
How exciting. How exciting. Thank you so much, Mary Lee.
Thank you.
You can see her face glowing when you ask her how she's going to expand the business. Her mind's churning constantly. We love it. Mary Lee, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Mary Lee Hudson and her new venture, consignonlinedesigns.com, for making today's Carolina People so special.